Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. A bit of a busy morning. I was at the Government of Kenya Symposium, where I was a moderator for the Cabinet Secretaries Phyllis Candier, Henry Rotich, and the Permanent Secretary Monica Juma, Foreign Affairs. Very enjoyable, and took up my morning. Looking forward to Mindspeak this Saturday. If you haven't been to one, I hope to see you there. That's the Saturday, the 19th of March at the Sankara, Nairobi, from 9:30 a.m. We'll be hosting the founder, Richard Britton Long, and key officers from St. Paul's PLC. St. Paul's is a UK-focused property company investing primarily in UK government and quasi-government occupied properties. What is Mindspeak? We have a little link if you care to take a look on Rich Wrap-Ups. Fed holds steady, eyes 2 rate hikes this year. The interest rate outlook is a shift from the 4 hikes expected when the Fed raised rates in December for the first time in nearly a decade. Majority of policymakers now said they expected it would be appropriate to raise rates by about half a percentage point by the end of this year. Our first take on this is that it probably leans slightly more dovish relative to expectations, and I'll get to that in a moment. I like this photograph on Bloomberg of a fellow called Roger Hunt in his home office somewhere in the desert. Home Thoughts, fantastic photograph from Light Bender, the sunsets in Lamu, and we haven't been there for quite a while, and it is quite an extraordinary place. Another extraordinary place is Sirikoi. They tweeted this photograph of their swimming pool at dusk, reflections, African sunset, yellow fever trees. We went up to Sirikoi last year and took a helicopter ride to Mount Ololokwe for breakfast with tropic air. And I put up a photograph of the view from the top of Ololokwe mountain. A shipwreck found off the coast of Oman is believed to be that of Esmeralda, part of the famous Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama's armada to India more than 500 years ago. Political reflections, Tony Fratto, a White House spokesman for George W. Bush's administration, tweeted, "What essentially happened today is Hillary Clinton was elected president. We have 8 months of hyperventilating before it's official." On Tuesday, Trump won his 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th states. Ted Cruz has won 7. Rubio confirmed that he was ending his candidacy, won a single state. Trump said he predicted riots if denied the Republican presidential nomination. This was a CNN interview. Trump said if he got a large number of delegates yet was denied the nomination, I don't think you can say that we don't get it automatically. I think you'd have riots. I think you'd have riots. I'm representing many, many millions of people. And then there was an interesting article in the New York Times measuring Donald Trump's mammoth advantage in free media. Trump earned $400 million worth of free media last month, about what John McCain spent on his entire 2008 presidential campaign. Trump has no weakness in any of the media segments. In other words, he's strong in every type of earned media, from television to Twitter. Over the course of their campaign, he has earned close to $2 billion worth of media attention, about twice the all-in price of the most expensive presidential campaigns in history. It is also twice the estimated $746 million that Hillary Clinton, the next best at earning media, took in. And then I like this tweet from Claire Shirky. See it? Clinton is not rerunning her 2008 campaign. She is rerunning Obama's 2008 campaign. It's Sanders that's rerunning her old campaign. Breivik, who of course is this mass murderer from Scandinavia, had his own treadmill, a PlayStation, spin bicycle, and a reclinable chair with an integrated footstool. The US is heading towards a dangerous showdown with China. Excuse me, this is something I've been speaking about for a while. Obama administration is moving toward what could be a dangerous showdown with China over the South China Sea. The confrontation has been building for the past 3 years as China has constructed artificial islands off its southern coast, installed missiles and radar in disputed waters despite US warnings. It could come to a head this spring when an arbitration panel in The Hague is expected to rule that China is making excessive claims about its maritime sovereignty. What makes this dispute so explosive is that it pits an American president who needs to affirm his credibility as a strong leader against a risk-taking Chinese president who has shown disregard for US military power and who faces potent political enemies at home. This isn't Pearl Harbor, but if people on all sides aren't careful, it could be the guns of August, says Kurt Campbell, saying that the administration is facing another red line moment where it has to figure out how to carry through on past warnings. What troubles the White House is that President Obama thought he was assured by President Xi Jinping in Washington in September that China would act with restraint in the South China Sea. China does not intend to pursue militarization, Xi said publicly in the Rose Garden. And that situation is clearly continuing to ratchet higher. The World Happiness Report came out in 2016. Denmark first, Switzerland second, Iceland third, Norway fourth, Finland 5, Canada 6. Other interesting, US 13, Germany 16, United Kingdom 23, Nigeria 103, Zambia 106, 116 South Africa, 120 Egypt, 122 Kenya, 124 Ghana, 131 Zimbabwe, Sudan 133, Ivory Coast 139, Angola 141, Uganda 146, Tanzania 149. Bottom of the heap is Burundi 157. This photograph caught my attention. Lesbos, Greece, a mother and child in an emergency blanket after disembarking on the beach of Kaiya. Russia drops the mic, Syria pullout comes at perfect moment. After 5 years of brutal fighting and 2 weeks of a scrappy ceasefire, President Putin has suddenly announced that the main part of Russia's forces currently in Syria will begin to be withdrawn. Assuming this is not some public relations stunt, and if it is, it will very quickly become clear, seriously damaging Moscow's credibility, then it represents a shrewd and pragmatic move. Politicians tend to find it easier to start wars than to end them, to escalate rather than to withdraw. For a leader who clearly relishes his macho image and who has been articulating a very aggressive foreign policy in recent years, to opt for such a stand down is the striking act of statesmanship. The intervention was, after all, never about winning the war in Syria. Even the most starry-eyed optimist would not expect a relative handful of aircraft and ground forces to end this bloody and complex conflict. Nor was it primarily to save Bashar al-Assad's skin and position. Rather, it had three main objectives. Firstly, to assert Russia's role in the region and its claim to a say in the future of Syria. Secondly, to protect Moscow's last client in the Middle East, ideally by preserving Assad, but if need be, by replacing him with some other suitable client. Thirdly, to force the West, and primarily Washington, to stop efforts diplomatically to isolate Moscow. For the moment at least, all three have indeed been accomplished. The unexpected injection of Russian air power on September the 30th not only changed the arithmetic on the battlefield, it also re-energized the regime. The scale of the bombing assault, with more than 9,000 sorties flown, according to Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, allowed government forces to turn back the tide. Not only were they able to retake Aleppo and some 400 other settlements by Shoigu's count, but the Syrian Arab army's morale recovered considerably too, and with it Assad's personal authority. Finally, on the diplomatic front, there is no question that Putin's intervention did indeed end any hope of ignoring and isolating him. Russia and the United States are joint guarantors of the ceasefire in Syria now, and even in Ukraine, the two countries have renewed conversations about a settlement in the Donbass, though it was Moscow that began the conflict. Got to see what the situation, it seems the withdrawal has gathered speed, but let's see. I think he can step back in at any time. He sent a very powerful message. Let's move on to the currency markets. The euro has popped all the way to 113, trading now. Dollar index 95.03. Japanese yen 111.45. 110.99 is the key level. Swissy 0.9776. The pound 142.94. The Aussie is at 0.7627. That's surged. Indian rupee 66.865. Last time I checked, South Korean won 1173.82, the Rial 374.12, but you know the political scenario there does not help. Egyptian pound 887.91, South African rand 1555, and I'll come to that in a moment. That's probably a sell as well. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart. A dovish Yellen cut the legs from underneath it. Euro dollar. We're now at 113. 114.50 is actually the key level, and I doubt we'll get there. Mystic yen is called the rally, now sees a gain in the yen towards 105, which was, you will recall, my target from the beginning of the year. Commodity markets, gold 1265.95. It's popped higher with a dovish Fed. Interesting comment from Reuters via Jubair of Saudi Arabia. There is no grand bargain with Russia over Saudi oil policy, he said. Crude oil has also popped up now at 40.67, but that's also dovish, the Fed helping. Let's see what happens next. Lula is to become Brazil's chief of staff. The Real, I'll put up a 5-day chart at 374. I think it will stay under pressure. I don't think they're out of the woods there yet. Mozambique currency sinks as tuna bond triggers downgrades. Mozambique's Metical currency slid 6% on Wednesday after Moody's and S&P issued ratings downgrades amid mounting concerns about a proposed debt restructuring for a troubled $850 million bond issued by state-run tuna fishing company Martin. S&P lowered Mozambique's sovereign credit rating from B- to CC, which is extremely speculative and just one notch above potential default status. You know, I was at the Africa Rising conference. The IMF had an Africa Rising conference 657 days ago. It seems like it was from another era. That day I tweeted, Africa Rising, but no longer in the rising tide floats all boats' way it was in 2012 and 2013. Put up a chart of the Mozambique Metical versus the dollar. Their current account gap is forecast at 45.3% of GDP this year, the highest in the world after Libya and Tuvalu. Put up a photograph of the sunset at Maputo Harbour, taken a while ago. Afrobarometer, how many Africans are connected to an electric grid? Do those connections actually work? Almost 10,000 refugees from Mozambique have fled into Malawi amid renewed violence between government and Renamo forces in recent months. Tony Leon, who was once the leader of the Democratic Alliance, says it's Jacob Juma's country, the rest of us just live here. Then making a comparison, saying that South African ministers don't resign, going back to Geoffrey Howe and describing how Geoffrey Howe told Parliament it is rather like sending your opening batsman to the crease, only for them to find, as the first balls are being bowled, that their bats have been broken before the game by the team captain. And he's talking about Pradhan, and then he's saying, quoting Ricardo Soares de Oliveira, an Angola expert at Oxford University, penned the phrase, the privatization of power By this he means a model that fuses personal power and state interests in the hands of a small ruling class that brooks no dissent. Another quote from Bloomberg: if Gordon lost his job, it would be completely chaotic. It would wreak complete chaos on the markets. If Zuma lost his job, the markets would rally. Expecting ANC to act against Zupta is like expecting a pig to eat a pudding, said Julius Malema. We need to deal with this. It will degenerate into a mafia state if this goes on, said the ANC Secretary General, Gwede Mantashe. I go back to the 14th of December when I said the markets are not interested in Zuma's explanations. They are seeing a South African president who has gone rogue. I wrote that in December last year. South African all shares at a 16-week high. It's up 3.93% year to date. Dollar rand back in that mid-range between 15 and 16. I'll put up a 6-month chart. I still think we're going to go see the rand print 20. Jacob Zuma, I'll put up a photograph of it. Egyptian EGX30 in a bull market now, up 3.18% year to date. Like this photograph of the Holy Cross Cathedral in Lagos was designed by African slave artisans from Brazil. Nigerian all share down 10.42% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index down 2.68% year to date. Olam is bets on Africa reward as on-the-go food demand decline. Is hunting for more investments in Africa as it looks to benefit from the continent's increasing appetite for everything from instant noodles to lollipops. Long endowed with rich agricultural resources, including coffee and cocoa, Africa has a growing middle class that is now demanding more packaged food. That's presenting increased opportunities for investment in branded foods, as well as raw materials such as rubber, cotton and lumber, outweighing threats from political unrest to terrorism. One of Olam's key bets in the continent is on branded food, driven by Verghese prediction that Africa's working-age population will overtake China's in 20 years. Africa, in some of these markets, is at the cusp of convenience foods. The rising number of dual-income families, where both husband and wife work, is transforming food habits. Convenience foods for on-the-go consumption is increasing. Noodles and pasta are two very good categories where we've seen very high growth. Interesting piece in the ISS taking back the seas, prospects for Africa's blue economy. International shipping is driven by fierce competition. The history of maritime trade within Africa's coastal waters has been characterized by foreign exploitation since the early colonial era. Today, the African Union, through its 2050 Africa's Integrated Maritime Strategy, plans to implement new cabotage laws to finally liberate the continent's maritime transport industry from foreign dominance. Kenya's aims to cut 50 billion shillings from net 2015-2016 spending. Government had forecast a budget of 8.7% of GDP. Draft figures released in February showed a revised deficit of 8.1%, falling to 6.9% in 2016-2017. We are increasing spending in some areas, cutting in others, but overall cuts are more than increases, so we have a net cut of around 50 billion shillings. Co-op Bank reported very strong results. Profit after tax accelerated 46.046%, but funnily the share price is trading lower. Loans and advances increased 16.2%. Profit before tax up 40.92%. Profit after tax up 46.046%. EPS up 36.686%. Dividend hiked 60%. Strong numbers. They seem to have navigated South Sudan apparently. Plus 60% dividend hike will go down well. They're an outlier in terms of the results they've released. Kakuzi reported full-year profit after tax accelerated 229.382%. That was an extraordinary outcome. EPS up 229%. Improved profit is considered satisfactory, was driven to some extent by the weather conditions as well as favourable market demand for our main export products. Avocado was dominant in returns, but tea and forestry made useful contribution to profits. Weakening Kenya shilling also worked in our favour as well. A dividend of 5 shillings a share, really muscular. Avocados, higher tea prices and a weaker shilling boosted earnings. Remember, so many companies found the weaker shilling difficult to navigate. Agricultural companies did not. Treasury has withdrawn 4.9 billion shillings set aside for participation in a planned National Bank rights issue, citing delays in the process. Kenya shilling 101.48, Nairobi all share down 0.24% year to date. Nairobi LSE 20 down 2.86% year to date. Don't forget, we've got Mind Speak on Saturday. I hope to see you there.